seconded by?
I'll second, Amanda.
Amanda has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? Wonderful. We accept the minutes from our August 2020 meeting. All right, cool.
I'd just like to note, I'm sorry, I just realized that I hadn't hit record, so we are recording as of now.
You want to go back and do the whole thing all over again?
That's right. Let's call Glenn back in.
yeah, that chance. Here we go. Okay.
You know, the only thing is that I know that Deb was going to review the video once we were through. So just for the purposes of that, I'll just restate that we've had a review of our financial review by Glenn Winter of TM Bixby. There was very little of consequence that he found, no major issues or cause for concern in our 2019 financial statements, and nothing that would cause him to need to review the 2018 audit that TM Bixby did last year. And we approved and accepted that the financial review and the library's 990 form.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. Just as a short sidebar, I teach a course, one of the many courses I teach over Hudson Valley, which we're all doing via Zoom now. And I promised the students that I would record all of my lectures. And one of my lectures is an hour and 50 minutes long, and I forgot to record it. So I actually have to do it twice with nobody there, because I told them I would record it, and I realized when it was all over with, I hadn't recorded it. And it was really a lot of fun. And I talked to no one for an hour and 50 minutes, which was actually not that different from when the students were there, actually. So anyway, anyway, here we go. Sorry about that. Treasurer's report, August 2020. Melanie.
Yes, and before we do August, we need to also go back and accept June's. We did talk about it at the July meeting, but we didn't have the actual sheets in front of us. So Joe did send around June's 2020 financials. Did anybody have any questions on those? Like I said, we did kind of discuss them in July. If not, we just need someone to make a motion to accept July 2020 financials. I mean, sorry, June 2020 financials.
Make that motion.
Okay, Paul.
Paul made the motion. Seconded
Second.
by?
Dick, second.
Thank you, Dick. Dick has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody abstaining or opposed? Nope. Okay, cool.
Okay. And August financials are going to be fairly quick as well. So the first one is the statement of financial position. Not much has changed. There wasn't much difference from last month. The only thing is, I do know that we are going to be discussing the CDs later on and perhaps savings accounts. So you might want to just keep that one handy. It does list how much we have in each CD and how much we currently have, well, relatively currently have in all of our other accounts on there. Again, the CDs mature September 27th, so coming up quickly. Anybody have any questions on the financial position paper? Okay, moving on to the statement of activity. Not much has changed on that from last month. If you compare it to kind of last year, we do have some changes. Nothing relatively new, just with the times. The only thing that's different is the summer concert series did end up on the statement of activity this month on the second page. And of course it has a 0. So that is why that column is empty for that. Anybody have any questions on that? That's a statement of activity, just comparing this year's to last year's at the same time periods. Okay. And the third one is the budget versus actual. It just tells us where we are at. Everything, I don't even think there's too many, no notes on that from Jason. So I didn't have anything that stood out on that. Not much different than last month either. Any questions on anything of that, the budget versus actual? Okay, well, if nobody has anything else, we'll just need a motion to approve the August 2020 financials. So can we get a motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
All right, Dan, thank you. A second?
Second.
Paul, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Abstaining? Okay, thank you. That's all I have for the financials.
Great. Thanks, Melanie, very much. All right, on to the director's report. Mr. Burke.
All right, so you've all got my written report. I do have one other issue that I was sort of struggling with how to express in the director's report. And in the end, I left it off because it is such a fluid situation. And I'll come to that, I guess, in a moment. Our circulation is down, but it is over 50% of what we had last year. So in that sense, we are doing about as well, if not a little bit better, than most of the other libraries in the system. This is not a phenomenon that is idiomatic to us. Even the libraries that are more fully open than we are at this stage are showing a drop in circulation of at least 50%. The Bethlehem director said that his was about a third on our last meeting. I don't know if he was looking at those numbers, but that's it is what it is. In terms of digital circulation, we're obviously quite a substantial bit up from last year, and we're going to have to talk and think about our spending on digital materials. We have resumed our programming, some aspects of our programming. Some things are continuing online, such as our story times. We're knocking those down to once per week rather than twice a week. Honestly, I'm getting pretty burnt out on the video editing piece of that. And if I never have to hear my voice or see my face on video again after this is all over, it will only be too soon. And I think some of the rest of the members of the staff feel the same way. We're all getting pretty sick of talking on video. But it is what it is, so we'll carry on. But we've also been doing programming live out in Orsini Park. We've had ukulele meetups, we've had book clubs. Those have been going really well, and we'll be happy to continue doing those as long as the good weather prevails. Curbside service has been going relatively smoothly. We've had one or two minor kerfluffles about patrons not wearing masks, despite having been asked several times and having many signs out front telling them that they absolutely needed to. We've taken to using the sandwich board sign that we used to use for concerts, and we've got that out by the doors, by the front steps now, as one major reminder that's pretty difficult to ignore. And that seems to have done a bit of the trick. Some of our harder cases are coming up later on this week. Maybe 2 of them are tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. But by and large, everything has been going pretty smoothly. I have been getting more questions than I had been last month at this time about when we are going to reopen. And that's, that's natural. People are seeing other libraries at starting to reopen in a limited sense, and obviously we'll talk about that later on in the meeting. It is going to be, you'll notice that I put in there the bit about scheduling and working from home. My wife is working from home currently. Her office is closed through January at the earliest. And with the beginning of the school year, it's just untenable. It's just an untenable situation for her to get any work accomplished, while also directing 5 days of 5 days of remote learning from home. So my request to the board is for leave to work from home on Wednesdays and Fridays, or at least twice a week, 2 days a week. That I think will ease some of the burden on, and I will obviously still be working and accessible to the staff, to the board, to patrons, if I were to be able to do that. Does anybody have any questions about that piece? I don't know if you need a motion or anything, but are there any objections, I guess? Okay. Let's go to the piece that I didn't include in the written report, and that has to do with state funding for Upper Hudson. The reason that I didn't include it is because it's such a fluid situation, as you may have seen. Many organizations, many schools, many organizations that rely on state funding have experienced a holdback of 20% of their state funding over the past several months, based on lower than anticipated state revenues. With that in mind, many organizations, including Upper Hudson, have been sort of tearing their hair out, trying to figure out how to cut 20% of their 2020 budgets, 20% of their 2020 spending. And that has put them in quite a bind. I mean, that comes out to just over $400,000 that they would, if those cuts were to become permanent, that they would not see. And that is going to redound to us in a number of ways. It will probably require them to cut staff. And it's at a certain point, we will start to feel it. We will probably have to pay a larger amount in terms of membership fees. Our portion of that will not be huge, but it will be a real expense. But more dramatic.
Any idea what that means? Real expense?
It will be something in the, to the tune of, I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
how many hundreds of dollars that will be.
Okay.
But it will be an expense.
Okay. But it's certainly one that we cannot not pay.
It's not something that we cannot not pay.
Right.
We derive tremendous benefit from Upper Hudson,
Right.
not only in terms of in everything that they do, the maintenance of our ILS, the maintenance of our shipping, receiving of materials from other libraries, the programming assistance that they give us. They do a huge amount of work that if we had to do it, it couldn't be done. It would not be the same organizations if we had to do all of the things that Upper Hudson has to do for us. They also, here's the thing, is that in the past week, you may have seen the governor coming out and saying that these holdbacks were never intended to be permanent, that the money is going to come, that, you just have to wait for it. It'll be along, the check's in the mail. So that has given organizations that rely on state funding, schools and libraries, some hope, but how do you budget for that? So Upper Hudson has had to proceed as if that money was never, is not coming. And I can tell you that, for example, my school district, Albany, has had to lay off 222 teachers and support staff on the assumption that that 20% was never coming. What else can you do, right? So that's for this year. Next year is going to be probably, something of the same. So there's going to be at some point we'll have answers as to what is coming. We'll have definite numbers, but the state has been pretty oblique in getting real actionable information to the stakeholders. So I guess this is all just a sort of point of information that that at some point we are going to have to deal with service cuts from Upper Hudson, or increased fees to Upper Hudson in order for them to make the budget. Another piece of that is that that same 20% is also not coming to Albany Public Library. Why is that important? Albany Public Library is the central library in the Upper Hudson library system. And central library aid is something that all of the libraries in the system rely on. Central library aid is something that that has been in place for over 50 years, and it is a source of funding from the state to the central library in every library system to allow them to build a reference collection that can be used by all members of the library system. So if you, it would, in other times, allow them to buy very expensive reference books so that not every library in the system had to have a copy of the Consolidated Laws of New York, for example, or specialized encyclopedias, things like that. The way that has been, that money has been used in the past 5, 6, 7 years is that Upper Hudson has, or rather Albany Public Library has, for the benefit of the Upper Hudson library system, developed a nonfiction digital materials collection. So when you go to Overdrive or to Hoopla, well, when you go to Overdrive to Libby, and you're looking at nonfiction books, even very popular nonfiction books, Malcolm Gladwell's and Brene Brown's and things like that, any nonfiction, most of that is being paid for from the central library money that that Upper Hudson, that Albany Public Library gets. On the understanding that that we've had to cut 20% from the central library's budget, that money is getting cut off. So we're not spending any, Albany Public Library is not spending any more money on nonfiction digital materials for the benefit of the whole system. So all of the other libraries in the system are going to have to, in order to meet the demands for nonfiction materials, are going to have to increase their spending on digital ebooks and audiobooks in order to meet the demand for those titles. That was a long explanation of a pretty simple concept. The point that I'm trying to make here is that more money is going to have to be shifted from our physical materials budget into our digital materials budget. We're also going to shift some money into the digital materials budget to continue our Hoopla service. And we are way underspent on our physical collections. If you look back at the budget versus actual report that we were just discussing, you'll see that there is definitely wiggle room in our collections budget to increase our spending for the benefit of the whole system. Okay. That's all I've got from in my director's report. Does anybody have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Joe and his director's report?
Joe, the only question I have, Amanda, here was I noticed with the digital, where Libby is so much more utilized than Hoopla. Do you think that's something it's because maybe our patrons don't know as much about that platform as the other one? I mean, I know it's more expensive for us. So it's kind of a catch-22, but.
Catch-22, and you're exactly right. Overdrive, we've spent, well, first of all, it's newer, and so people have had less time the way that we always were able to get people onto Hoopla was that, I would do it on their phone, or I would show them on my phone how you download it, how you select a book. We haven't had that opportunity to do that kind of face-to-face, one-on-one tutorial with Hoopla. But the other piece of it is that we have held back in terms of the publicity that we've done on it. We've done some, but we haven't done as much as we might do for precisely the reason that you stated, was that it is more expensive, and it's more expensive in a kind of a peculiar way. It is a per use charge. So the more people that know about it, the more it's going to cost us. The more people that know about Overdrive and Libby, doesn't matter. I mean, it
Right.
increases wait time, which means that ultimately in the by and by, we have to buy more stuff. We have to buy more digital rights to more books and audiobooks. But for Hoopla, it's very direct. If the more people that we tell about Hoopla, the more people are going to use it, and the more that we're going to be charged. So it's a combination of those two factors. At the outset, I didn't want, the other piece of it was that our initial idea behind Hoopla was that we would only have it through September as to augment the digital services when all of the libraries were closed. It was something that we could do. It was another way of getting video, comic books, and a different catalog of ebooks and audiobooks to our patrons. And so we also didn't want to get people used to something that we were going to have to yoink away from them in September. So, but I do find a lot of utility in it. I don't know if other people have used Hoopla.
Is it not compatible with Kindles though? Like I know my family and I use like the Kindle Paperwhite. Are you able to read Hooplas on Kindles?
You can on a Paperwhite. You can on a Kindle Fire.
Okay, like the internet compatible one.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know what your patrons, I know, I have friends that use the Kindle Paperwhite too, and that was, I didn't know if that figured in at all, is you can't use it for those.
It's an app-based,
Okay.
So, unfortunately, you can't use it on older generation Kindles or newer Kindle
Paperweights. Because Overdraft or Libby, I mean, you can, so that's kind of nice about that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I use it all the time and love it. So
good. I know that Jonathan was an early adapter, and probably you were to Hoopla.
Yeah.
And it does, it offers video, it offers, but we do limit people to 5 checkouts per month for precisely the reason of it for its per use cost structure. So, but if you're not using it, you should be. It's great. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. Anybody else? Any other questions?
I've got 2 questions for you, Joe. First one was, will you be making any kind of announcement, or maybe I missed it already, in like the local paper about the award that our program won?
I haven't yet. I only got official notification of that.
Because that's very nice, and given the fact that people don't know, or people are saying, when's the library going to be opening, it might be a good thing just to say, hey, listen, don't forget we do really good programs, and we will be doing them again, and you might want to put that in your piece sometime soon. So
thank you.
it's great to get good news. It's a time where good news is helpful.
That's it. It's particularly relevant to the column because that was something that we did in collaboration with the Altamont Enterprise. The first Altamont Remembers Story Swap was kind of hosted by Melissa Hale Spencer, and she used it. She put it out in the Enterprise's podcast feed over 2 weeks, so that the whole thing could be heard without editing it down. So that was really cool, and she was a big part of that. And obviously, we're very grateful to Melissa. I only learned about this officially at the end of last week, so I will that will go in not this coming Thursday, but the following Thursday.
Okay, cool. And my second question is, and I'm going to go back to what you were talking about earlier about working from home. Are you comfortable with the board in not responding one way or the other in terms of not putting a motion forward? I mean, are you comfortable with just doing this in sort of an informal sort of a way, or would you rather have something formally the board is saying, we're cool with you doing this?
I don't need it to be formal. This
Okay.
is more, you know, I want you to know that this is something that I'm doing.
Okay.
I want you to know that I am still accessible even if I am not here.
Right. And I've contacted you at home multiple times, and you're always right there. So.
Right. And you know, but this differentiates it from my days off in no way at all. I can always be contacted.
Gotcha.
And
Okay. I just want to make sure you were comfortable with the arrangement. That's all.
yeah, no, I am. I just, you know, it's there are questions that, you know, if you have questions about my productivity, you know, my whatever.
We'll put up a trail camera or something like that.
I feel like one of the few questions I don't have is about Joe, your productivity.
Yeah, I think that's why nobody has a problem with it, Joe, because we know either way you're still working. So
Right. I just want to make sure you were comfortable, Joe. That's all. I
works
just
for
want to make sure
you.
you're happy with the setup. Okay, that's cool.
I have to say, Joe, that I'm impressed by your report every week in the enterprise. It's very helpful and keeps people, you know, they know what's going on. And your distribution of books in and out sounds like it's working well, and everybody's being cooperative.
Thank you. It is working pretty well, and it is, you know, it's a model that is safe, that the staff is comfortable with. You know, obviously, I've spoken to every member of the staff about what's coming next, and they're comfortable with that too. You know, there's as we were talking about before, we'll talk about that in when we get to it. But thank you, Dick. I appreciate it.
And regarding the non-mask wearers, Joe, we could always talk to Paul about putting a trap door in the foyer. That was a joke. I'm not serious about that. So take that off the recording. Okay. Anyway, so all right. So moving right along to the where am I? The agenda. What happens next? Let's see. We're going to the committee reports. Personnel committee did not meet. Program committee, did they meet, Joe?
No, but I did have a very nice conversation. Deb Katz, who unfortunately could not make it tonight, did come out, and we sat down and talked about some programming ideas that she's been kicking around, and we talked through some of those. One of those ideas was the program that we're going to be doing next Monday at this time, which is Kelly Pickering talking about. Kelly is, if you don't know Kelly, she is a national treasure, and she is a holistic nutrition specialist, and so she's going to be doing a virtual program on immunohealth, and that was one of the ideas. She made that initial contact with Kelly, and I'm very grateful to her. There were several other ideas that we talked about in that conversation, and you'll be seeing the fruits of that coming up soon.
Cool, excellent. Okay, Paul, can we turn it over to you for the building committee?
Sure, not too much to talk about. You know, our little bee problem doesn't seem to be getting worse, and Joe reports that maybe he's seeing them less, but that maybe they penetrated through a window. I'm not sure if that's, you know, significant or not, but I thought I'd stop by tomorrow and, you know, just take a look at that. And we spoke about the slate project, which I forget the exact figure, replacing the slates on the roof. That had turned out to be more than we had originally, was more than I originally thought it would be. And being 850, something like that. And maybe that I would just go ahead and get another couple of prices if I can find companies that have some significant experience with slate, so that we would at least, you know, it's always a good idea to, you know, get another price or two. So I'm going to be doing that. And the only other thing that I can discuss is something that I've been kind of putting off all summer, but I'm actually looking forward to doing, is just giving the outside a bit of a spruce up, and that would be to address that big substantial baseboard that sits on top of the foundation. So I'm going to do just a little test painting of it with the compatible color, with the exact color, and see how that goes. Because I think it's so faded out that the entire structure would just look a lot better if that prominent feature was more defined. And Joe probably has some other things to add on to that too, onto what I just mentioned, Joe.
I don't have anything else to mention. I mean, you and I talked earlier. I don't have anything else.
We're moving forward with the chimney cap though, correct?
Right, he's had the word that it's okay for him to go ahead. I might look into a product, but he felt secure that he felt assured that he could come up with a good product that would act as an adhesive. So he would slide it back into position and then pry up one side and install an adhesive. So it would, and then the opposite on the do the opposite on the other side to ensure that it really didn't go anyplace.
Cool.
But he made no promise when he would do it. Told him that, you know, we don't think it was moving terribly fast and that he should do it at his convenience. So when he's coming through town with his machine and he's got an extra hour or so, he will stop in and do it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Anybody have any questions for Paul and the building committee? Okay. Next one is the finance committee. And three things. Melanie, you want to tackle this?
Sure. I guess the first one is we talked at the CDs. The finance committee met and discussed what to do with some of the savings and CDs. Our long-term holding plan, which was the quasi endowment, is still on hold. We're still waiting for some information back from the lawyer on that. But in the meantime, we do have CDs that expire, I believe, next week, the 27th. Kind of what Joe had looked into and what we had recommended coming out of that committee was taking two of the CDs. Oh, and there you go. Look at that. So taking two of the CDs, which are right around $24,000 each. I don't know if you have that in here. And rolling them into new 18-month CDs. He did find a product up down here at the bottom, right there, where you can roll it over, and if the interest rate increases in the next 6 months, you can reinvest in at least a 12-month product at that higher interest rate, for what it's worth. And the third, so those are just 0.75s, although we'll have to check definitely when we go in if that's still the current rate. It's probably very close to that still, if not the 0.75. What we wanted to do, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Joe, but we were going to take the third CD and add it to our Centennial Fund right there and open up a new savings account. We have just a regular savings account now. This is a preferred savings account. You need a balance of at least $100,000. The interest rate is slightly higher than what we're getting now. It looks like it's a 0.25 or 0.45. It was a point.
So the current rate on our savings, our preferred savings, is 0.25. The preferred savings plus is 0.45, but it requires a minimum balance of $100,000. So if we were to take the Centennial Fund and transfer that into the preferred savings, and also to take one of the CDs and transfer all of those funds into this preferred savings plus, we would have $116,894 in that preferred savings plus at a interest rate of 0.45% rather than 0.25%. The other benefit there is that it's just more liquid
I think
than having the CDs, having
Three
three
CDs.
CDs, and all of that money locked up in the CDs. So we would be a little bit more.
And I think a thing to note is we usually don't even touch our savings. Like that is definitely a rainy day. Our yearly expenses all come out of business. So even though we are close to that $100,000 threshold, that would definitely be a rainy day withdrawal from there. That is not a normal expense, or even usually it has not been touched. So I know that was a lot. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or opinions on any of that?
Should we get a motion then, if no one has any comments or concerns, that is the direction that we want to go with our, that third CD and the Centennial Fund?
Sure. So it would be a motion to roll over 2 of our 18-month CDs into new 18-month risk-free CDs. And it would also be to combine the third CD of $24,000 approximately with the leftover money from the Centennial Fund and our current savings account, combine the 3 of those to create a new preferred savings plus account.
Everybody understand the motion
So
that is
can I
on the
get it?
table?
Melanie, just one quick question as for the preferred
Sure.
savings plus account. Because there's a
Yes.
minimum balance, is there
Yes.
any fees associated if we drop below 100,000?
Yeah, Joe, did you ever find out anything about that? We can definitely ask about that too.
There-
Only because it is so
Right.
specialized.
Right.
There is a penalty associated with dropping down under 100,000. If we ever did that, and again, I mean, in nearly 6 years that I've been here, we've never touched our savings account. So it would be it would be very, very difficult to do that accidentally.
Okay.
Bordering on basically impossible.
I think I found it. I just looked on the SEFQ account. I think it's $15, it looks like,
Okay.
below minimum average monthly balance. Don't quote me. This is just their website. I can definitely make sure when we go back into the bank that that is correct.
Yeah.
But it's
At any point, can we switch
plus
out
that
of
it's
it?
$15, probably monthly. Yeah, I think you can just, it's just a savings
I mean, it's
account.
just so you can just switch it over to a different savings, like to the regular.
The preferred savings at
Back to,
Yeah.
0.45.
Unplus it and then
yeah,
plus
take
it.
it back down to
where we were.
regular.
So
Right. It's not like a CD. You're not locked in for a certain amount of time. You're just saying you'll keep this minimum. So they'll give you a slightly higher interest rate.
Okay.
So,
So, Joe, on this, we haven't passed anything yet, but I'm just thinking, when Melanie and I go in on Thursday for the signatory thing, the idea would be we would put this into motion. Is from a practical point of view, is there something that SEFQ knows that we have a Centennial Fund that we would say we want that money moved from there to Preferred Savings Plus?
they know that we have a Centennial Fund. It is specifically named.
Okay, all right. I wanted to make sure about that. That's all. Okay.
No, that's an official thing.
So yeah, so we probably, Melanie, we probably ought to bring this motion with us, because they're probably going to want to see it, most likely, because
They want to see everything.
they
Yeah.
want to see everything. That's correct.
Okay.
So anyway, does anybody have any other questions about that or concerns? If not, can I get a motion that we would, or can Melanie get a motion that we would do that?
I'll motion, Dan.
Thank you very
Amanda.
much. Amanda, thank you. Seconded?
Second.
Katie seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Anybody opposed or abstaining?
No.
Okay, so the motion is passed. The CD discussion. Wonderful.
Email the spreadsheet that I've got up on the screen to you all. Not to you all, but I mean, I can to you all, but specifically to Dan and to Melanie.
I'm sorry. What did you just say, Joe?
You'd said you wanted to bring what I just had up on the screen.
Yes.
So I'll email it to you.
Yeah, I guess that I'm hoping that will be formal enough for them. I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Once you
I think because you're still on the account, you'll
Right.
be able to do it.
Yeah. Okay. And we're not taking money out. We're just relocating it, so it should be fine.
Right.
once your
Famous last
signature
words.
is on the account, you can transfer
Sure.
manage as you like.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right.
Let's-
Budget for 2020.
Can we do
What's
the
that?
signatory resolution?
Say it one more time.
Can we do the signatory resolution real?
Sure. Let's do the signatory resolution. Sure. Melanie and I went down to CEFCU today, hoping to put her name on the card to be able to sign checks. And because Elizabeth was on that. Oh, and this is it right here. Thank you very much. And Christine Carpenter Hill is still on as a signator. And so we have this document here that if we pass this resolution, because this is what CEFCU wanted, something in writing, it said that in fact, I can't see it right now. Please be advised that at the meeting on September 21st, the Altamont Free Library Board of Trustees voted to make the following changes to CEFCU account line. Remove Christine Carpenter Hill. We also need to add remove Elizabeth Searing. She's still on it. So you're going to do that right now?
Yep.
Oh, you are amazing, Joe. And to add Melanie Shatinsky as a signator to the above named account. And so that just allows us to have two people who are able to sign checks and not just myself. So can I get a motion to accept this resolution as it is written here?
So move.
Thank you. That was Dick. Seconded.
Yeah.
Somebody want to second that?
Katie.
Katie, thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Abstaining or opposed? All right, the resolution has passed. Joe, can you send that document to me?
Yep.
Thank you, sir. All right, and now you get the chance to talk about the budget. Woohoo!
Okay. So just at the outset, does anybody have any questions from what they've seen so far before I jump into this? Okay. Okay, so a couple of things that is probably important to know. When I set out to put together my draft of the budget, I was working on sort of parallel tracks. And I made up a kind of a best case, a worst case scenario budget. We're officially calling those the budget and the contingency budget. I haven't sent around the contingency budget, which is the worst case scenario budget, but it is important for you to know that I have that in my back pocket, and that as the year goes on and we get more clarity and more assuredness as to what our revenue picture actually is, we will probably want to update the operating budget with some of the contingencies that are imagined in the contingency budget. So there is a worst case scenario. This is the best case scenario. This is what my hope is that we'll pass tonight, and this will be the official version of the budget. Even though it is the best case scenario, it still envisions spending a decrease in spending over last year. In sum, it is a $169,600 spending plan, down from $179,000 last year. It is, I think, a manageable budget, but it is going to be important to be flexible in case revenues do not come out to where we hope that they will. So Starting with the revenue side, we are going to ask all of our municipal funders to fund us at the same level that they did last year. So that's $58,000 from the Village of Altamont, 61 from the town of Guilderland, and 7,500 from the town of Knox. I've already put in our request to the town of Guilderland, and Peter and I have had some discussions about that. We are hoping, I am hoping, I'd actually hoped to have their early deliberations about that, so some sense of what the number was going to be by now, but it hasn't come yet, but I hope it will soon. But in any event, I will say that the town has always made us a priority. Peter assures us that that we remain a priority, but it's going to be a very difficult budget year for all of our municipal funders, to whom we're all, very grateful for their continuing support. So, 126,500 in municipal support is our biggest revenue line. In terms of fees, faxes, book sales, copier fines, I anticipate that those will be lower. I will anticipate that lower circulation will mean lower overdue fines, that fewer people coming in the door will mean fewer faxes and fewer photocopies made. So that, even in the best case scenario, is lower, 3,000 rather than 48 from last year. In this scenario, we envision being able to hold our summer concert series and taking in $1,000 in hat passing at those concerts. Obviously, we have the expense that goes along with that as well. Under the best case scenario, there is, and we discussed this last month, there's no universe in which we can hold a February gala for 180 people in the community room at Village Hall. It just can't happen. So we are going to start working on and thinking about other ways of other events that we might hold, or other ways of realizing some of that fundraising revenue that we would normally get from the gala. It's just too big of a piece of our revenue picture to say we'll take a year off from doing a big fundraiser. We just can't do it. So we are anticipating something like $14,000 in revenue from that event, from the event that we're going to discuss later in today's meeting, that will take place in May at the Fine Arts Building on the Altamont Fair campus. In terms of other fundraisers, library lights, book sale, bake sale, this is looking out to over a year from now for library lights and the election day bake sale. So hopefully there's a rosier health picture by that point. So a total fundraising revenue of $17,000. We'll also be doing an annual appeal, in addition to the normal gifts and donations that we get as a normal, in the normal course of our lives. That includes donations made to us from people who we outreach to with gala invitations, but who cannot attend the gala. That includes that all the way down to the quarter that somebody throws us for 2 photocopies and they say keep the change. All of that stuff adds up, and the total picture here for gifts and donations is $18,000. That is substantially up, and again, this is the best case. We see grants of $2,000, direct state funding of $1,000, which is lower, so $3,000 there. So the total picture is $169,600 in revenue. Does anybody have any questions about any of that so far? The previously restricted income, by the way, is money that is currently in the Mary Jo Doherty Fund and the money that has been donated to us by the Pulliam family for museum passes. So that's money that's right now in our in the bank, but can only be used for certain purposes. So the oral history stuff is programs that we do, like the award-winning story swap programs. We hope to be able to start that again soon. But also programs that that we can do in conjunction with the Altamont archives, and basically for the sake of preserving and sustaining Altamont history.
I have a question, Joe.
Yeah, no,
Do we have a Todd Pulliam fund anymore?
there's not a,
Or is that accounted somewhere else?
it's only informally accounted. There's not a specific savings account in the same way that
Okay.
there's a specific Mary Jo Doherty fund.
Okay.
But it is, that money came in on Todd Pulliam's death in 2016. And it was basically, it was about 4,000. I would have to go back to the numbers.
No, that's fine. I just make sure I wasn't missing that somewhere.
No, there's not a formal, and never was a formal, savings account for the Todd Pulliam money. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, in terms of expenses, this envisions doing the roof slates, chimney cap, and power washing in 2021. But maybe if we get that work done and we can find money in the budget for it this year, then we wouldn't have to wait on that. But we can talk about that some more. Utilities probably about flat, although that has proven to be a historically high estimate. But $5,000 is I'm still comfortable with that. I would like, and I'd asked Jason to split this maintenance line into maintenance supplies and maintenance services. So just for the purposes of clarity, obviously we're spending more on maintenance supplies for all of the wipes that we're buying, all of the sprays that we're buying, all of the stuff that we're doing to keep the library clean and safe for our patrons and for our staff. But we also have increased maintenance services, amongst which are $45 every month for alarm monitoring, which we didn't have last year. Annual checkups on our sprinkler system and our alarm system, our HVAC system. But all of that would be encompassed in that $5,000 budget line. Payroll expenses are going up slightly, not yet, but soon. I'll come back to the audit line in a minute. We're going to end our Zoom and T-Mobile subscriptions, which we have been filing under telephone and telecommunications. Those are both new services that we've taken on in calendar 2020. And so they weren't budgeted for specifically, but we've filed them under telephone and telecommunications. What that means in practical terms for you guys is that we're going to switch away from using Zoom for our meetings and go over to a different service called GoToMeeting. But we've got a couple of months before we have to do that. So you don't have to learn a new trick just yet. It's maybe some of you have used GoToMeeting. It's a fun product, and Upper Hudson pays for it. So we wouldn't have to have that monthly cost for Zoom anymore. Insurance is going down per the quote that we've gotten from Utica National, but we're budgeting a little bit higher just in case. Ulan fee is probably going to go up, and that comes back to the Upper Hudson revenue cut. but that's just a guess. For the audit line that I said I'd come back to, we have been talking for, it's actually years now, about the need to go over to switch up our auditor. We've talked about it. We've talked about when we want that to happen. We had planned on doing that next year. Increasingly, it seems like that may not be the best thing to do, but rather to simply ask for TM Bixby to appoint a new auditor within their firm to review our books. We get, they do not charge us a tremendous amount for the service that they provide for us, particularly compared to the one other quote that I got, the low end of which was for an annual review, was substantially higher than we pay for a full audit. And a full audit would have been nearly twice what we spend for a full audit with that other company, Marvin & Co. So I'm budgeting $8,000 in case we do go over to another firm, and there are some associated costs with that. Increasingly, I think that it's likely that we will stick with TM Bixby, but that is a board decision, and we can take that at some other time. But for right now, budgeting 8,000. So that's 25,100 in the library operations budget line. Lower circulation of physical materials, which I project will continue into next year, means lower costs for physical materials. I still think that we can put together a fine article of library with a decreased budget for most physical materials. You'll see we're knocking down adult books from 3,500 to 2,000, children's books from 5,500 to 2,500. A lot of that is driven by we have already canceled our subscription to the Junior Library Guild, which is a subscription service that we have used over the past 3 years or so to augment our collection development for children's books. Basically, we pay them and they send us, we pay them about $1,500 a year, and they send us something like 15 books per month from a selection that they choose. But rather than doing that and getting things that don't circulate quite as well, we will be doing all of that collection development manually. And I think that we will be able to put together a fine collection of new children's materials at $2,500, despite not having that service available to us. I don't anticipate bringing magazines back, but I do anticipate bringing newspaper subscriptions back once we can have people hanging out here again. That's obviously not happening yet, so we'll hang out. We'll wait until we have to renew those subscriptions to do that. But most of our magazines, we have already let the subscriptions lapse and will not be renewing those. The major place where we're going to be increasing our collection development is for digital materials, not only for Hoopla, but for Overdrive, to meet the increased demand that we have seen over the past several months and actually several years for digital materials, ebooks and audiobooks. So that's 10,450 down from 13,600 in library materials. Any questions so far? Okay. Program budget is down, primarily because we're not going to be doing many live programs. I guess, if under the rosiest of health scenarios, we won't be doing live programming until, late spring, when we can start doing them outside again. So that's reduced cost for that. But of course, this does envision being able to do the summer concert series, for which we've budgeted $2,500. That $2,500 sort of comes from three different sources. One source is the village, whom we specifically ask for $1,000 out of our whole appropriation goes to fund the summer concert series. About $1,000 comes from passing the hat and donations that we collect during the concerts, and $500 comes from our budget. And hopefully we would continue that. Salaries. So the salary proposal that I've got calls for a actually lower spending on personnel than we've seen in past years, primarily because because we're open fewer hours. So we're not doing evening hours, and I don't anticipate bringing evening hours back. I don't know when we'll do that. I don't know when demand will require us to do that. We can shift the 40 hours around. So if we really wanted to do evening hours, maybe we would open later on, let's call it, Tuesday and Thursday. So there's ways of maintaining a 40-hour week without increasing the number of open hours or opening up to evening hours. But this does call for bringing back Saturdays. I've heard from some people that they would like weekend hours. So this calls for bringing back a 3-hour Saturday. It also calls for 2% increases for staff members, for all staff members. And that's if the board wants to do that. The board sets my salary, it sets Jason Cooper's salary. All other salaries are set by me. So I am asking for 2% increases for the members of the staff, besides myself and Jason, and then you guys can decide whether. But this is if you decided. This allows for an up to 2% increase for myself and for Jason, but this does not require you to grant those. The fringes that we've been seeing over the past couple of years, we've always used 10% as the benchmark, but we really do need to recalculate that because it's been coming down substantially, at like 20% lower than what we've traditionally budgeted for fringes. But in any event, that's personnel expenses of $91,624. And just so that you can see the line by line breakdown of that, this is what that salary line looks like. So 4 hours for each of Anne, and Albert, and Meg Steinberg Hughes. Two 4-hour shifts and 1 3-hour weekend shift for Joanne, and 3 4-hour shifts for Erica. Obviously, those can be shifted around, and Claudia will continue to work an extra hour per week. So actually, oh, no, I got the math wrong here. Uh-oh. Okay. So you'll have to forgive me. I'm sorry. I didn't catch that error until now. So it's 86.53 rather than 83. What happened was that I had left Claudia Leclerc's because she's working extra hours. I did not anticipate giving her the 2% raise. She has gotten 3% raises every year for the past several, but I did not include her in that 2% raise because she's got the additional hours. And obviously we can talk about that, but because of that, it didn't get included in the personnel total. So I'm just gonna copy that and shift this over here. Okay. Nope, that didn't do it. Sorry, guys. Okay. So that raises the personnel expenses to 94,382, still below the personnel expenses that we had from last year. The major difference was that in years past, we had budgeted Jason Cooper at 5 hours per week, but he has never worked, even in his busiest week, 5 hours a week. 2.5 is even more than his average over the past. I went back basically the whole year and averaged his work, and it's just a little bit over 2 hours. So I rounded up to 2.5 hours per week. So we had budgeted way high in years past. Yeah, I guess basically just last year for Jason's salary, and that's a large part of the reason that we're seeing lower costs even with a salary increase from last year.
Hey, Joe, can you do your little magic thing and just go back to that other that one?
Yep.
And what if you put Claudia at 2%? What does that actually do for the overall total difference?
Not very much at all. Let's go ahead.
I'm almost inclined to think that even if we're giving her extra hours, we ought to give her the same raise as everybody else.
Fair enough.
I don't know what other people think on the board, but it just seems like we're talking $50 difference is what we're talking about.
Absolutely right. Yes.
So I don't know if the board feels different, but it just doesn't seem right that somebody's not getting the 2% raise.
Yeah, I agree too.
I agree. Yeah.
Especially since she's doing the cleaning and there might be even a little more that she's having to do than she wasn't normally.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
agree.
If anybody is, I mean, yes, Claudia you're right. That was an oversight on my part.
No, it's not oversight.
No, you were trying to be conscientious, Joe. No, not an oversight.
So, okay, so we are still below last year, even all of it. I anticipate a budget for the event at the fairgrounds. I anticipate a cost of about $2,000. That may be pie in the sky. I'm just pulling that out of thin air, but mostly that is based on not having a sit-down dinner to pay for. Maybe past hors d'oeuvres, maybe a cash bar, but that's probably something that we'll have to sit down and think about amongst the Gala committee. So that's the fundraising expenses. Miscellaneous conference attendance, but no hotel. Organizational membership for NYLA, which actually includes for this year for the first time ever at no additional cost to us. Every member of the Board of Trustees, so congratulations, you're all members of NYLA now. And after that, we've got our $18,866 payment as bond service, $15,000 as principal, $3,866 in interest. And every year we're getting closer to finally paying that off. I think we've got 6 years left on that bond service. So that's good. Yeah. So that is a total spending plan of $167,703. So that's 152 plus 15,000. So
Joe, does your total expense line, does that go back up with the other cell calculations that were done, the changes?
yeah, that let me just make.
So it just updates itself?
Let me just make doubly sure because we've had this problem in the past.
Yes, that's what I was asking, just in case. I know it's not crazy amount, but just so you have your numbers.
So I'm just going to change the. Okay. Well,
Yeah, the one you sent out had it as 149,890.
Okay, so it did change it.
okay, good. Thank you. Well, let's just see that live here. 704. Okay, yes, good.
Okay.
So that's the number. That is the budget. Again, this is the best case scenario budget. We've got the contingency budget in our back pocket. Some differences of note between.
Joe, before you go any farther, okay? I don't know, I'm not going to speak for the whole board. That's just from me, but again, thank you for what you're doing for this library. Joe, we're talking about a budget of $180,000 to run a library. I mean, let's not lose the fact that you're running a library for nothing, Joe. I mean, this is amazing what you're doing, and we appreciate this. I appreciate this. I just want you to know this.
It is pretty crazy when you think about it. But you're absolutely right. The amount of hours that we're open, the amount of service that we provide, the amount of meaning that we provide to
Exactly.
the community, I think is a bargain at nearly any price, and all the more so at $180,000. So,
Well, and
160, whatever. 100.
whatever it is, and I thank you, and I think the board thanks you for all of your efforts with regards to everything you do. Everything you do.
It's kind.
And also, I put a number on stress.
Yeah, true.
A lot of stress.
Whatever makes Joe happy, we're all on board for.
Oh gosh, stop it.
I think you're doing great considering nothing in your training would have covered pandemic.
Yeah,
Right?
sure.
I mean, it just got thrown at you and you're doing great with it.
None of us, none of the staff, nobody.
Nope.
None of you guys. So I think we're all doing okay. But I appreciate the vote of confidence. I really do. But just before I ask for a vote on the budget, we do have that contingency budget in our back pocket, and I just want to run through some of the differences between the two. I'm not going to put the contingency up on the screen, but in the contingency budget, there are, we basically see our municipal appropriations reduced in Guilderland and Altamont to $50,000 and being zeroed out by the town of Knox. We see lower costs for the auditor, so guaranteeing that we stay with TM Bixby or some lower priced option. So rather than 8,000, it's 6. The contingency budget calls for a deeper cut to our collections budget. It has no summer concert revenue, but also no summer concert spending. So that's actually a savings to us. Basically last month at the Finance Committee meeting, we set a threshold for how much into our savings we were willing to go with that contingency budget. The benchmark that we arrived at was the value of one of our CDs, $24,000. So the contingency budget basically calls for revenue and spending that draws no more than, I think it ends up at $22,000 from our savings. That is our rainy day fund. We don't want to spend it, but it's a rainy day. And under a worst case scenario situation, this is the reason that we have those funds. This is the reason that we have those savings, and we're going to be all the more secure without having to reduce staff, lay anybody off by drawing from that funding, or reducing hours substantially, or decreasing the service that we provide to our community. So all of that having been said, are there any questions?
Joe, I do have a quick question about the summer concert series. The gentleman that had, Henry Montgomery, that donated that check, did we end up returning that to him, or is that accounted for in the new budget?
So he did not cut the check.
Okay.
He pledged to underwrite one of the concerts for $500, but he never cut a check. for that amount.
Okay.
But he was at the point at which we stopped planning for the summer concerts in February. Basically, we were still lining bands up, but we had not reached out to either him to ask for that money or to any additional sponsors.
Okay.
But that will obviously be something that we look at very strongly for next summer's concert series. How we doing? Okay. I guess, Melanie, do you want to call for a vote?
Yes, should we call for a motion to accept the 2021 Altamont Free Library operating budget? So do we have a motion?
I'll motion, Amanda.
And a second?
Dick, I was like,
Thank you, Amanda and Dick. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, and the budget has passed. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.
All right, let's see, onward and upward, where are we? Hey, Joe, can you get rid of the screen share here?
Oh, gosh, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay,
There we go.
thank you. All right, so, I know it's been a long meeting. We'll try to get through the rest of this pretty quickly. Policy committee didn't meet. Long range planning, I'm guessing didn't meet either, correct? Correct.
No.
And it didn't, right, Joe?
No.
No, okay, good. Then old business. We got three things. Which order you want to do them in, Joe? Hoopla, browsing by appointment, or Gala update?
Okay, so I basically handled the Hoopla piece in
Okay,
the director's report.
okay,
This is all to say that the budget that you just passed calls for spending more money on Hoopla through next year, but I'm moving $150 into the digital budget to bridge the gap for next year.
okay.
Gala update. So at our last meeting, we talked about other venues for a fundraiser. One of the ideas that I think Dan brought up, possibly somebody else, was using some of the buildings at the Altamont Fair, the Fine Arts Building. After that meeting, I reached out to Amy Anderson, the fair manager. She was happy to allow us to use the Fine Arts Building for a fundraiser. Initially in our discussions, I had asked about a June fundraiser. The idea being that, do it at some point during the year when it would be warm enough to open those barn doors up and get a lot of air circulating throughout the building. Throughout the course of our discussion with Amy, she mentioned that the concern that she would have with a June event is that if she rents that building out for weddings pretty often, and I would imagine that it'll be a pretty popular venue for weddings with its ability to open basically to the fresh air next year. And if she were to have someone want to book the building for the same time that we were planning on using it, that she would have to take that revenue because of the substantial decline in revenue that they've had. I mean, they're barely hanging on, but they're willing to let us use the building. So in order to be a little bit safer in terms of scheduling and the security of scheduling something far in advance, I asked if it might make more sense to look at late May, and she thought that was safer, smarter. So right now, what I'm thinking about is an event in late May. at the Fine Arts Building on the Altamont Fairgrounds. Something that would not involve a sit-down dinner, but would have perhaps past hors d'oeuvres, would have an auction primarily focused rather than some of the, the businesses, the stores, a lot of whom are suffering. Rather than doing that, we would, I think there would be a greater focus on artists and artisans and local craftspeople who would, potentially, I would hope, donate materials for that auction. So that's the idea. Anybody, Amanda and I spoke briefly about this earlier today, but does anybody have any thoughts about that?
So the fairground gives it to us free of charge is what she was saying?
Yeah, the only other idea I started to have is because we just don't know that kind of what the scenario might be is if it were, again, we don't know if we can get that many people together. This might be late spring and vaccines may or may not be here in that comfortability level. The other idea I was starting, I walked the fairgrounds today, just on my normal little walk, and was looking at like the beer pavilion area. Like there's that, as you're walking down where the EMS is, right, when you come on Grand Street, and they have like music and stuff in there. I was like, well, maybe that's a nice open area if something were to come. Or we look at maybe trying to sit, rent a large tent if it's sunny out with everything being opened. There's no closed doors for fresh air, because even the idea of past hors d'oeuvres might sketch people out. They don't want somebody coming so close with a plate of food. So it's trying to reimagine what our typical library gala looks like and how we could still pull in that revenue, because even on the side of the silent auction, I've talked to some people, and it's like Joe had said, the small businesses are suffering, and it's trying to have the tact to say, hey, listen, yeah, can I have a donation even though your business is failing? Trying to dance around that subject it's dicey. I've had people say, I don't know if I'd even entertain an idea. So it's going to be different, but I know everybody loves the library. That's one thing people have said is any way we could help, we'll do what we can, but there's so many unknowns.
So I also spoke to Yvette Terplak about this briefly. And my hope would be to get a meeting of the Gala committee, probably a virtual meeting of the Gala committee, certainly a virtual meeting of the Gala committee together in the next couple of weeks to start talking and thinking about ways that this could work. And if it can't work, it can't work. I mean, if it is, then we'll find something else. Other ideas that have been brought up have been things like virtual auctions, online auctions. That's something that could potentially work, and other libraries or other nonprofits are starting to look at. We'll make it work because we have to make it work.
Joe, two things. One is when you put that meeting of the Gala committee, can you just CC me? Just if I have the time, I'd like to just sit in on that with you all as well.
Great, thank you.
I know I haven't been on the committee in the past, but I think you're right. And I think Amanda's right too. There are just so many moving parts right now that, and I think what we need to challenge all of us to do as board members is just think about this between now and our October meeting. So maybe we could spend a bit more time in our October meeting, because it is getting to be a late hour right now, that maybe we could spend a bit more time talking about what the committee has come up with, the Gala committee has come up with, as well as other ideas, other alternative ideas. We have a track record of being there in February, and I know we can't do anything in February in person. It might be something we might want to think about doing something then, just to remind people that, I don't know what it would be. It's just something to think about, lots of things to think about. So
Dan, all ideas are welcome.
right. No, I understand. That's the whole idea. So let's challenge ourselves to think outside the box, to be real trendy with our terminology here, and come up with, let's just brainstorm. In October, we'll throw all the ideas out and see which ones stick. So
I have a question. How does it take 2 months to prepare for the fundraiser at the Altamont Fair? How long does it take to put something like that on once we come up with an idea? Is it
Normally, we would, for the February event, we would start meeting in August. So it takes a long time.
Yeah, it takes at least 6 months.
I'm just thinking that I don't know if this disease will be more predictable then.
Yeah.
I don't see us having 6 months to do something like that, because unless we could just change course at some point if numbers start to go up, but it wouldn't take much to kind of dissuade us all, if things don't look so rosy.
It's
Right.
It's a very good point. And, in July and in August, when I was thinking about this, May seemed like so, such a long time. And, in terms of like getting through the school year, for example, it really, really is. But in terms of like planning for an event that we can feel safe and secure in, planning for all that, that long from now, I think you're right. And maybe we need to go back to the drawing board on this May date or on the venue altogether.
Yeah, because the other thing in terms of the May dates, I mean, you're going to run into graduations from colleges that they didn't get a chance to do
Memorial
that
Day
this-
weekend.
and Memorial Day weekend. So that's probably only going to leave you one May Saturday as an option between graduations at colleges and universities and Memorial Day. So again, that I don't know. And again, like Paul's saying, we have no idea the trajectory of this thing. So maybe, I don't know. Let's think about it, and we can talk some more in October.
If we made an honest communication with all of the library supporters, indicating what our hopes are, but also what our needs are, I think that people would rally in a huge way, even without having the annual celebration, which which everybody loves so much. I just think people would get their checkbooks out and give us the support that we need.
Paul, I agree. That's why I like the idea, Joe, of that annual appeal letter. I know a lot of places like the fire departments do that, on a pretty annual basis. And if that is a tactic we'd have to use this year just to make sure we could sustain that part of our fundraising with the honest understanding, this is just so far out of our control. But as Paul, I believe our library patrons they would respect the fact that we're trying to do the best we can with the money, and we would honor, that money and keep moving forward out of this hot mess we've all been in. I think they would be just as generous because we're asking individuals, not a business that is getting, for a donation that's getting hammered and or shuttering. We may have to do that. I just don't want us to lose out on an opportunity. That's why I keep saying like any and all ideas, because that whole idea of a virtual where they get the meals delivered and we work with Elegant Touch, do something like that. Just any and all ideas. And maybe even in that appeal letter, we kind of put like in a response, like, would you be looking for a gala at all next year? Or like something along that lines, like take their temperature, kind of see where they're at. Maybe they wouldn't even want to meet for a gala next year and just donate money.
I'd make a suggestion. It was suggested that we deal with this next month, and we're dealing with it now. So maybe we should leave it now and wait till October and have all these questions, because we could spend a lot of time on this.
Okay.
Good point.
So, and I don't want to be just cooking the can forward. It's a lot of unknowns, but I think that we're going to really see a peak after Thanksgiving and Christmas when everyone can't resist going home. And so I know we can't wait until January, but I feel like if we knew what was going to happen in January, or we didn't go too far down, that we could pivot at that point. I think January, we're going to have a much better feel for how May is going to be.
Good point.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sorry,
Joe,
Joe.
you want to say anything about the annual appeal, or do you want to just hold off on that?
Okay, let's talk about the annual appeal real quick.
Real
I
quick.
drafted a letter. I will send it to anybody who's interested for some editing. The problem that I'm having as I think about the annual appeal is that we've got
The
contact.
fact that we've never done it before, is that part of the problem?
We've never done it before, but that's not the hugest problem. But the big problem is that we have contact lists that we send things out to for the gala, but that doesn't. There are lots of new people in the village, lots of young families, lots of people that we don't have contact information for. We can't use library card information. That's not what that information is for. It's proprietary, so we can't, even if I knew that somebody would be interested that wasn't on those lists, I can't take that information from their library card.
Good.
So we need to figure out how to develop our contact list of potential supporters so that we reach the largest number of people. I mean, if we could just sort of blanket everybody in the village and the surrounding environs, and just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, that would be great too. But then I don't know where you get all of that contact information.
The village hall, Joe.
Okay.
The village because the village sends out their little resident letter with like that little pamphlet that has all the stuff in there.
I don't
And
get
that's,
that.
well, we could get it for Knox too. Does Knox have anything like that, Rachel?
I have no idea.
I don't know if I get that from Guilderland even. And I'm in Guilderland.
As a village resident, I got it. It comes right from Altamont.
I'm not a village resident. That's why I'm like
That's what I'm
slightly.
asking, like up there.
Knox
I'm
has never
I'm
sent me
Guilderland.
anything. Yeah.
And I'm Guilderland too. But that's definitely, we could get one place, but what if too, using that Altamont community Facebook and just putting that we're going to have this, and if anybody's interested, I'd be more than willing to, even have people send me their addresses, that type of thing as well. I know that gets a lot of people in the area and the surrounding areas too.
The fire department get their mailing list?
Probably right from the village.
Because I get a thing from Guilderland every year with like the leaf pickup stuff, and then I always get the little Altamont thing. It says when all the concerts are, and not like
right.
The water information. You get a little flyer every year.
It's pulled from the tax rolls.
But that'd be great. Is there a way to tell Amanda from that? Because technically, like, I would be Altamont, but I only get Guilderland mailings because I'm not in the village, but I'm not Knox either. So
yes, it's all broken out. I used to work for the tax office. That's why I know.
Right. No, I
It's
know
all
you work
broken
there.
out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if there's a way to tell people that are Altamont, but not village of. But
Yes,
I'm assuming you don't want to
there's,
send it out to all of Guilderland.
No, but there's class codes on your property that delineate if you're in the village, but just outside the village, kind of like where you are, Melanie,
Right.
where you're still part of the
Right.
village, but the structuring of that. So then we just take those addresses and blanket it village resident. Or as you're saying, library patron at 123 Western Avenue, whatever address. But yeah, this is public information that's accessible.
It is.
It is.
Okay.
I think though, what we also have to do, and maybe we need to talk about this, maybe we need to set aside our October meeting to focus on these two issues, the gala
Good
and
idea.
the annual appeal. Because aside from contacting people, I think we also have to have some kind of a hook that we're going to use, and not just send out a letter saying we're appealing for money. I mean, we've got to be creative about how. I know you guys are thinking this, but I mean, I think we have to have the practical. How do we reach people? But then, what are we going to reach them with? And I think we got to think about that and come up with something that's going to work. Otherwise, we've sent out, how many years have we sent out surveys, right? It's one of the things we're good at doing, is sending out surveys when we want to know, what do you think about this and this and this, and what we get 10% back on a good survey. And I mean, the thing is, we get a lot of mail from people, from things, and what's going to make this one stand out? We got to think about that, I think, a little bit.
Mhm.
A lot.
Well, I would, I guess, just ask everybody to spend some time thinking about that between now and then. And, in our October discussion, hopefully we would be able to come up with some ideas. And I know that we get, that you get a lot of mail, I get a lot of mail asking for donations, contributions. We'll probably get more of that this year than we've gotten in past years. There's a lot of need, and there's going to be a lot of requests. To my mind, the hook is that we're us, and we're the little library that could. We have a more direct we have a more direct impact on many members of the community, not every member of the community, but many members of the community. I think that we've already done the work of distinguishing ourselves, without trying to figure out, and maybe I'm just thinking about this wrong, but I don't know what we can offer. We already give everything away for free. That's our thing. We can't make it even more free. So
No, I hear you. No, you make a good point, Joe. That's true. I guess I just want, not so much what we could offer. We just have to be able to stand out among all of the incoming that we're getting. That's all.
But I do think if we think about, I thought Joe's idea, I think there's a lot of artists in this community. So I don't know. I'm just trying to think how you can combine, whether it's how you mail it or something, but I do think we have a lot of local talents that if there's some way to weave that together, because I think there's a lot of artists and I felt like at the auction last year, a lot of that stuff, there was a lot of it, and that stuff that was Altamont or from an Altamont artist. I don't know. I'm just trying to think if there's any way we can combine that might, so it looks different than another piece of mail, but I do think people who support the library and get that. But I am trying to think if there's any way we can weave, I think there's a lot of local talent here, and how can we pull it together so everyone's helping the same cause?
I was wondering if there's some way we can do a little token thing, like the bracelets, but use peer pressure for good, where if it's a light you put in your window or a light up decal or something, especially since it's dark all winter, that it just, you say, I support the library, right? And then you see a bunch of people, and then that sort of spreads just because you see them around the community. And I don't know what there are as options, but a thought is hey, I supported the library. And so they get something, but, less than, because no one, I mean, the Gala's fun, but people go to the Gala to support the library. They don't go for the food, right? I mean, it's fun, it's great, but they go because everyone loves the library. So I think that I think a lot of people would support, but then there's always the peer pressure part of and I don't mean that in a it sounds evil when I say peer pressure, but just
No, I-
we're a community together, I guess, bringing people together around the library, which I think is what the gala does as well.
One of the things that comes immediately to mind is all of the posts, all of the people who have felt compelled to share. That sign out on the boulevard that's been out there for a couple of weeks that says that, you're doing great. Be kind to yourself. You're doing great. This is just really hard. Which I like nearly brings a tear to my eye every single time that I pass it. Something like that. I think it just, I like what Katie's saying about drawing in artists, messaging. I like what Rachel's saying about peer pressure, positive, spreading, some outward sign of your support.
I want to change it to gathering the community together instead of peer pressure.
There's a great local sign maker named Rachel Frederigo, who's a patron. She does a lot of she does signs. She does hand lettered signs. Maybe there would be something like a sort of yard sign, campaign sign that maybe she might design for us, with some kind of a positive message with a library spin, with maybe a couple different well, anyway, as Dick
Lots of ideas. Yes.
As Dick said 2 hours ago, let's talk about this in October. But
Sounds good.
I love that you're all thinking about this. I so appreciate that you're all thinking about this. I hope you continue to. When you have great ideas, write them down, keep them around in your pocket, and I'm sure we'll come up with some wonderful ideas for our next meeting.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
No,
No.
sorry.
Joe, I've never gone over 2 hours in a meeting since I've been president.
Look, man, this is
Precedent setting. I know. I've heard it before. Okay, go ahead. What?
We're meeting every. Okay. So I just want to mention browsing by appointment. Okay, so at our last meeting, we discussed browsing by appointment. I laid down some guidelines for how that could work. I will mention again that nearly every other library, not every other library, but nearly every other library has begun doing some variation on browsing by appointment. The exceptions are Guilderland and Albany, as far as I am aware. But Guilderland will probably start doing it within the next couple of weeks. They're looking at starting to browse a small portion of their collection by appointment on October 1st. Albany has started allowing some appointments for non-browsing, but other services like refilling bus passes, which is something that you could do at the Albany Library. Copying and computer use, I think, is what they're doing. You can't browse their collection yet, but that'll come at some point. In any event, we've got to do it eventually. So I have updated our reopening guidelines along the lines of what we described in the last meeting. This could potentially start Monday, October 12th. Maybe even a little bit earlier than that, if if everything goes our way. This is a browsing by appointment, means that people would be able to make appointments to come in and browse the collection, one person at a time or one small family at a time, for up to 10 minutes. There would have to be at least a 10-minute gap in between appointments for us to disinfect and clean up anything that needed to be cleaned up. Computer use would still be restricted, as with the restrooms. The toys are all mostly already away, but the rest of the remaining, toys will be taken out of the children's department. We will keep a record of everybody who's coming in to do that for the purposes of contact tracing. And there's a couple of circuit breakers in here. If the Guilderland School District suspends in-person classes, or if the Albany County rate of positive COVID tests goes above 5%, then we will revert to a curbside service only model. But we also say that the library director reserves the right to return to a curbside only model at any point in response to changing circumstances, health conditions, or patron behavior. Basically, if my staff is having to argue with people about wearing masks or staying, past their 10-minute appointment time, if they're having to do this routinely, then we would go back to a curbside only model for some period of time. These are the changes that I've made, and I would just ask for the board to reapprove these reopening guidelines. You've already approved them. You approved them initially in May, reapproved some changes in June, and now I'm asking you to reapprove them again with this new addition.
Okay.
Well, the
Anybody have
only
any
thing
questions for Joe?
you might want to add, just because I feel you might put like if the entire Guilderland School District, or I personally would think, or if Altamont Elementary closes, I think there's a chance like it could end up being not only the whole district, it could end up being like a building. But I mean, that's up to everybody else. But I do think that if it's right in the community.
I mean, I'm comfortable with that. My thinking, I thought about that. I had thought that if one building was going to close, that they would all close.
Kind of all did, and it sounds like it might not be the case.
That seems insane to me, but okay. I mean, if Altamont Elementary School suspending in-person classes, I guess presupposes that they would not be doing that on a school-by-school basis and disadvantaging children in one neighborhood over another one. But, I'm happy to switch that over to Altamont Elementary School suspending.
Or I'm just wondering if you add both. Like, I think, of course, if the whole school district closes, I'm not sure.
Well, then that would encompass
Yeah.
Altamont Elementary. So let's just make it Altamont Elementary and leave it at that. As you know, or you may know, there have been 2 cases identified at Altamont Elementary so far, and that really stinks. Some of them are good patrons, although not recent patrons of ours. So obviously we hope for the best for everybody involved, but I'm happy to make that change.
Thanks, Katie, for bringing that up. I think that's an important point. Anybody else have any other comments or concerns about the reauthorizing? That's not the right word, but you know what Joe was saying before.
Yep, reauthorizing.
Reauthorizing. If everyone's cool with that, can we get a motion to accept the reauthorization of the browsing by appointment protocols?
Starting when?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Starting when? I have on here October 12th. That seems long to me now, as I'm looking at it. So I'm actually going to say as early. I'm going to change this to as, if it's okay with everybody. I'm going to say as early as October 5th, Monday, October 5th.
Okay. Okay. Now with that change noted, can I get a motion to approve this modification to the browsing by appointment protocol?
I'll motion, Melanie, to approve it.
Okay,
Amanda, I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody abstaining or opposed? All right then. Joe, that has been approved.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the cause?
I have nothing else.
Okay, anybody else? Can I get a motion to adjourn then? You
Second.
guys don't want to, I know.
Second.
Nick said yes. Paul seconded. Wonderful. All in favor? You betcha.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, folks. And
Night,
again,
all.
October meeting. Be prepared to think about those other ideas, please. All right. Thanks all.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
night. Hey, Joe.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Joe, you're going to send me that stuff for SEFQ, correct?
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
I wasn't kidding either. You're doing a wonderful job.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Yes, you are.
Good night, guys.